this computer. Record. Hi, my name is Scott Simmons. I'm the pastor at Faith United Church of Christ. I'm here with Sam Hensel, one of my favorite people who I've known for a while. You are. I've always enjoyed hanging out with you and talking with you, whether it's a short conversation or a more in-depth one. But today we're going to talk about your Enneagram type, which is what?
4. I'm a 4.
What is a 4, Sam?
The 4 is the individualist, and they're sensitive, they're introspective, they're expressive, they're dramatic. And when I first took the exam, the test, and it came out as a 4 and it said individualist, I was like, that doesn't seem right. But then when I started diving into the characteristics, I was like, wow, empathetic, sensitive, can feel the room. And that really resonated with me. And then not quite feeling like you fit in anywhere, that resonated with me. Always feeling different, which then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I am a 4. And then when we had talked about it and we were going to do the interview, then I started diving in a little bit more. I was like, oh, I need to do a little bit more research. And so when I started diving in more, I was like, oh, wow, this is me. Like, I thought it wasn't correct until I started diving into the personality traits and the being sensitive to others, maybe overly sensitive, and being reactionary or passionate and temperamental, I thought were very correct for sure. And diving in, there were some things that I highlighted. When it talked about you said they were going to talk about my sin, my root sin is envy. I had trouble with that, and I had to go into that a little bit. But the envy, when I was reading into it, has to do with shame and judgment. And when I read into that more, I was like, wow, that really makes sense, because I am pretty judgy. I'm judgy because I think everybody should do the right thing. And when they don't meet my expectations, I get judgy.
Yeah.
Who am I to judge? I mean, what? So that was true. And I've done a lot of like spirit, thinking about how I can do better. And I think the shame, the guilt part, the envy kind of all tie into, and the more I was reading about it, I was thinking they all kind of tie into each other with the judgment thing.
Yeah.
That was pretty interesting. Not surprising, but I just had to think about it and process it a little bit.
So something I read is that, okay, the experience of the 4, they have this sense that something's lacking, something's missing. And then when they're in the envy space, when that's really, operating in a 4's life, they look at others as if everybody else has more, or they have it. And like, I'm lacking something, but they got it all going together. Their life is perfect. Their kids are perfect. They're whatever. Like, that's the like sin of the envy. And if I just had that, I would have more. I was thinking about how that fits with judgment. And I guess it's like, maybe if I'm feeling like I'm lacking something and everybody else, has gotten it easy, they should be doing better. They should be holding the standard better. Is that how it works? Am I understanding the kind of the place?
That's how I felt it. And I was thinking like exactly that, like, why can't they do the right thing? Like, people not being able to do the right thing. Just do the right thing. It's not that hard. And when I want to judge someone for not doing the right thing, I'm like, oh, wait, I have to reflect. Did I do the right thing? But I think that envy thing, they work together in the shame and the guilt. Like, I reflect a lot at the end of the day, like, ooh, could I have worded that differently? That was pretty judgy. Or in doing that face, I get criticized by my friends, and enemies about my face. Like, my face is judgy. I'm making the mom face when I'm doing my job and I have to explain to someone why that's wrong or you're closed. I make judgment with my face, and I don't even know I'm doing it. So I'm obviously, I know I'm very judgmental, but I put a lot of pressure on myself too. And I think that's where the shame comes in and the guilt.
Yeah.
Like, I could do better. I need to do better. My husband, as you know, kind of holds me to account on certain things. Like, I need to do better. Like, I don't need that. I already have that internal dialogue on myself.
Yeah.
I need to do better. If I'm going to judge others, I have to do better.
Yeah.
And then if I can do it, then they can do it. Well, not everybody's there yet. You have to meet people where they are. And we can only do as good as we can do today, right now, where I am with you. You know, I don't know what happened to you right 5 minutes before you got here. You don't know what happened to me 5 minutes ago. Yeah. So we're only doing the best we can at any given moment, but we can always reflect and do better.
Well, and your job requires you to be judgy. Yeah?
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, what do you do?
I'm a food inspector. I'm a health inspector, and I am in charge of the food trucks. And I have to go on a truck and judge how their sanitation, basically their food safety. Yeah. So yeah, my job requires me to be judgmental, but I also need to be empathetic and sympathetic to what's happening in that situation, because I get there and maybe they don't understand for whatever reason. They haven't been trained, or they don't understand.
Do you think, like, so just kind of playing with this idea that like a fundamental experience of the four is not being understood, perhaps even like something's maybe missing or lacking, you're not quite sure, then you can look at somebody who's not measuring up and go, man, maybe I don't understand them. Maybe I don't know what's going on for them. Like it's a source of your empathy for people in a sense. Does that
For sure. Yes, I agree. I think that I can empathize with someone or try to understand what they're going through. They're scared. Like for my job, I'm just talking about my job. They're scared that I showed up, and I empathize. Oh, that is scary. I've been inspected before. I was in industry. I know what it's like to be inspected. So I feel for you. I understand how you feel. But do you understand me? I am trying to make things safe. But even on just interpersonal communication, like, I always feel like I'm trying to put myself in someone else's shoes, but the lack of understanding of other people, like sometimes people don't understand me. Are they putting themselves in my shoes? Right?
Yeah.
Like the envy part, like I envy that, or it makes me feel judgmental or resentful, I suppose, could be a reason if my point is not being understood when I try very hard to understand someone else's point.
Do you feel that other people are understood more than you are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I don't fit into a box. Can't fit Sam into a box. So my box is very rounded. The edges are very round.
Yeah, there's lots of things in there. They're not categorized.
Yes, and I am cooked spaghetti, and Andy is uncooked spaghetti. So my son-in-law used the analogy of me being cooked spaghetti because I'm in a bowl and it's all swirly and everything's touching everything, and but aren't a lot of women like that? I think a lot of women are like that in general.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. But I mean, fours can be both men and women, and that is the thing that I'm learning, is that foundationally there's this sense of like not being understood. I'm different than the others, and then when there's the concept of like you can be more healthy in your type or less healthy in your type. And so like when that root sin is operating, there's something that you're saying, I'm not understood, but everybody else is. I'm not appreciated, but everybody else is. And if I just had what they had, then I would finally not have this feeling of like something's missing.
Sure.
That's like the struggle and the suffering particular to a four.
Yeah. And I was reading that when fours are really good and they're in their element, they're taking care of themselves. They're being creative.
Mhm.
That's true for sure. Like the exercise, the relaxation, the meditation, creativity, making something with my hands. That's how I get grounded, and that's how I relax and in my best self. My
Mhm.
worst self is just like it said with the bad parts about a four is overindulging, eating, not exercising enough, not being creative, not taking that self-care.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm here for a reason. And because I'm so empathetic, I'm not supposed to, but I feel like I take on other people's stuff, but I
Mhm.
have to protect myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it was very interesting reading about my
Yeah.
personality type.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so twos, threes, and fours are all part of the heart triad. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a
Yeah.
three with a wing four. So I got like when I read about fours, I see a lot of myself in there.
Uh-huh.
But we feel other people, and actually our sense of shame is tied to our desire to connect with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So a two who's the helper, they're like, I'm not enough unless I'm helping or I'm needed.
Yes.
Threes, I'm not enough unless I'm seen as successful by others, unless I'm achieving, I'm doing. And then
Mm-hmm.
fours is I'm not enough unless I'm seen as special. And so like sometimes fours can be like super flamboyant, like in the way they dress, so they stand out.
Yeah.
What's your
Yeah.
most flamboyant piece of clothing?
My most flamboyant piece of clothing. My daughters criticize me constantly for the clothes I wear. Like, Mom, that doesn't match, or why are you mixing stripes and plaid and polka dots? I'm like, they're all the same color. Or when I was in high school, I always dressed up and I always wore mixed matched socks. And nobody else did that then.
Yeah,
That's 30 plus years ago. My daughters
trendsetter.
do it now, and yeah, right. And I always wore red shoes, like Dorothy's shoes. I
Uh-huh.
love those in high school, and I always got picked on for my clothes. Always. Now, I wear a uniform now at home. In normal times, I'm not that flamboyant. Although Andy does say that some of my outfits are a little ridiculous. I couldn't tell you what's the most flamboyant. I don't know, but if I'm being compared to a bird, then probably it's flamboyant, my outfit. But yeah, for sure. Now it's more about comfort, like
Yeah, yeah,
work
yeah,
comfort.
yeah, yeah. But like I guess as I was reading, when a four is really operating out of a sense of like, I need to be seen as special, I fear being seen as ordinary. Down deep, I feel like something's missing and I'm misunderstood. So they will overcompensate by with some
Mm-hmm.
sort of like look at me behavior. And it's not always
Yeah.
dress. That's the easy one.
Yeah.
But it can be
Yeah.
like maybe that's the melodramatic, the like, temperamental, the like, hey, I will be seen and heard sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to tap that down sometimes because I work in an agency, a governmental agency, and there's a lot of people don't have the same political views as I do. So I have to tamp down my opinions, and sometimes I can't.
Mhm.
Um, but being like, especially coming from New York, where both my parents are pretty liberal, both my parents are artists, both my parents are highly educated. Um, there was that, and also my dad they don't practice any religion, zero at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And that was the whole not fitting in thing. My best friend was Jewish. My other best friend was Baptist. And then my family didn't do any religion. Zero, zero,
Mm-hmm.
zero. So the standing out thing wasn't hard for me to do because I always felt like it was easier to stand out because I'm always different than everybody else. So I
Yeah.
don't think I really have had to try very hard to stand out. I don't think. I mean,
Well,
ask Andy.
yeah. So that's interesting because one of the theories in the Enneagram is that our type develops because of some sort of challenge or problem that we face in our childhood.
Mhm.
And sometimes it can be a negative, like a trauma or what have you. Other times it can be something else. Like I
Mm.
reflected on my need to achieve. It wasn't that I had parents going, "We won't love you unless you win today." I
Right.
didn't have that kind of father. Like, "Don't come home here unless you won the fight." But he was very successful, and he told stories about his success, and so that's one of the ways I think that I kind of developed my type. And so what I just heard from you is that the very environment you grew up in around artists, and then that they didn't practice religion, like it just naturally made you kind of stand out. You grew up
Mhm.
maybe in a household of fours, and then it kind of right. Because the other thing is for a four, and this is something I'm playing with, and the sermon that I'm going to write is that it says that fours experience some sort of loss in their childhood. It could be they
Mhm.
lost like a parent or somebody significant, or there was like emotional neglect, or they were simply the middle child. And so to get
Mhm.
any attention, they had to like really like amp it up. Um,
Yeah.
and I was just, right. I was curious about, is that part of your experience? And if that's too
Yes, for
sensitive,
sure.
okay.
Oh, it definitely is. My parents got divorced when I was a senior in high school. I'm the oldest of two. My brother's 16 months younger than I am. So both parents artists, both very creative types. I was kind of left to my own devices. I didn't have a lot of, they were definitely not helicopter parents. They were the opposite of helicopter parents. And education was really important to them. And I wasn't a great student.
Yeah.
And I was creative and I was artistic. However, they had their thoughts on what my art should look like. My dad's a writer, my mom, they're both art. He's sculpture, she's paint, or vice versa. They do media, different mixed media, but my dad's a writer. So I love to write, I love to create, but when I was a kid, it would get overly criticized. I'd say they didn't mean it in that way,
Hmm.
but the way it came off was very critical. So then I just would journal to myself and wouldn't share it with anything. But the
Yeah.
best compliment from my mother was writing her letters from Spain, and she said how much she loved my writing, and I was like, wow, like many years later, whatever.
Yeah.
But the creativity aspect, I've always been creative, but my outlet, I'm overly critical on myself, maybe because of my upbringing or because of my whatever. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah.
But I do feel most comfortable and relaxed if I'm doing something creative,
Hmm.
painting or
Hmm.
something with my hands, making jewelry or things that I don't do enough of anymore. We don't make the time to do those things, but that's what makes me happy to do
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah. That gives you an energy when you do it. Right.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's something I learned about myself. It cracks me up that I like stand in front of an audience, every Sunday, a congregation or, and
Yeah.
when I read the threes, it's like they like to be in front of people and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, right. And it drains me, but it gives me energy. And I
Hmm.
like, and so I think you're landing on your type when the kind of primary thing it does actually energizes you and gives you
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
Did you read about what the speaking of giving life, did you read about what the fruit of the spirit is?
Oh no, I didn't. I don't think
Well,
so.
yeah, and I'm using like 4 or 5 different resources, but the idea of the root sin and then the fruit of the spirit comes from a guy named Richard Rohr. He's a Catholic priest. He's
Okay.
fantastic. But the fruit of the spirit for the 4 is balance.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I read that. I did read that in something that I read.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
finding balance is tricky because I know, like the things I know I'm supposed to do, the taking care of myself, the exercising, the eating correctly, reflection, all those things. It's hard to find that balance because it's so, the things I was reading about, the extreme, like I'm called out at work because I get overly excited, or my kids like, Mom, calm down. Like, and that's totally my type. Like I have to step back, reflect, then respond. I'm quick to respond emotionally. It's the feeling part, the emotional reaction, that part I'm quick on. But the balance, finding balance, I know I'm supposed to do it. I try to meditate every day. I try to, eat healthy and exercise and all those things. But, this knows it's supposed to do it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm too busy feeling.
Speaking of feelings, Rohr talks about specifically, and others do, that fours have a tendency for melancholy.
I don't agree. Well, for me, I don't agree with that necessarily. I feel deeply and I can cry easily. Like if commercials, of course, or if someone's telling me a story, I feel it. I can feel it from someone else, but I don't think I have extreme moodiness. Like I can get easily affected if I go into a room and it's very negative and the energy in the room is very negative. I can get easily affected by that, and then I have to get out of there. But I don't think it's a long-lasting melancholy, like sensitive, like it just in the circumstance.
Yeah. And to be clear, like one of the, I think, most important things I've learned about the Enneagram is that it's descriptive, not prescriptive. In other words, not everything that is for a type is going to be true to you or to me, right?
Sure.
And in fact, when we come across something that is associated with our type that is not true to us, it is also really helpful just to step back and go, is that me? Actually, not so much. But yeah, like fours can be depressive types, especially when they become unhealthy. They like the four nation is France. And Richard Rohr teases and he says, have they ever made a happy movie? Right. But on the same time, because of the ability to look at the dark side of life, of death, dying, and loss and tragedy, fours, more than any other type, appreciate beauty.
Yes.
Right. And so that balance too is sometimes associated with the ability to look at like the hard, difficult, sad parts of life, and then the beautiful.
Okay, so that ties into the fact that I love true crime. So I love true crime documentaries and podcasts, and Andy thinks that's very dark. So that makes sense because I do appreciate beauty and I do stop and look at the flowers and, oh, I haven't seen this type of clover before, or sunflower. I love flowers. I love beauty. I love sunsets. I love being able to see the sunrise. I saw it this morning. I was like, but I do. There is something about the macabre a little. There is a little macabre that I like. True crime. It is a little dark. So okay, you got me. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like, the part of me that is a four, it goes there as well. I just finished the show Handmaid's Tale. Have you heard this?
I don't want to know the ending. Don't tell me the ending.
I'm not going to tell you the ending. Oh my God.
No.
But I mean,
God, that's so good.
The whole show is dark.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's horrible. You're basically watching evil unfold in a society, what it's doing to people. And but then in the moments of grace that show up in that show, it brings me to tears.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I got goosebumps. Yes, you're so right. And because definitely. And that also, it's film, it's amazing cinematography.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And just the shots but you really can feel like all the character development, and then how, like, a lot of those people are so evil, but every now and then you see good in them.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's messes with you. Like
Yeah.
that, those characters are pure evil, but then they're not.
But they're not,
And
right?
isn't
They're
that
human beings.
they're not?
You know? Yeah.
They're just people.
Yeah.
And we all kind of have that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
parts of our personality.
They get caught up in the consequences of, like, I mean, that's like Serena, you know, she's like this incredibly interesting character because somewhere in one of the early seasons they tell her a bit of her backstory, and so she was like a thought leader in the movement that
Yeah.
led to it, and yet her own movement has caused her to be repressed.
Yes.
And yeah, you know, and so it is like this tragic experience. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think that that's, you know, four types especially, I can see, like, you know, the ability to see both sides and the tragedy, and it's a romantic sort of tragic show. Yeah.
Yeah. And the ability to see both sides. I always try to see both sides and try not to, even though I'm reactive, emotionally feeling, oh, whenever I start a sentence, I feel, and but that's how I am. I'm walking in my feelings all day, like bleeding heart feelings. And it's hard to shut that off. But
Mhm.
that's my Achilles heel. It's my strength and my weakness.
Yeah.
And then being able to see the bad and the good. There's a lot of people that are just the acting out. You got to get past it because there's something else.
Mhm.
Take each person for where they are. You know,
Yeah.
we don't know their story, and just try to find that special part of that person. Like I try to do that. It's hard sometimes,
It is
challenging sometimes.
when you're doing that, is that you leveraging your intellect going, hey, wait a minute, objectively I know not everybody has the same experience, or do you think you're still in your heart at that point?
Ooh. Ooh. Hmm. Hmm. It's a little bit of both, I think.
Mhm.
For my job,
Yeah.
I try to put myself in their position, or between, if my husband and I are having a disagreement, I'm trying to understand his point, even though I don't agree,
Yeah.
because I know there's what the intention is.
Hmm.
It's just the delivery might not be there.
Right.
The understanding, the communication, because I'm not being understood. Maybe that
Yeah,
thing again.
yeah. Yeah.
I understand your point. Do you understand mine? Like, but
Yeah.
is it that I'm overthinking it? I know I'm an overthinker for sure. I'm an
Mhm.
overfeeler and an overthinker. I'm both.
Yeah.
So am I doing? I don't know which one.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both.
I've noticed with myself when I am in conflict with somebody, you know, my emotions, ironically, especially threes, but all of us heart feeling types, we're apparently driven by our emotions, but the least aware of them, unless we do work.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so here I am being driven by my emotions. And then sometimes I go to my head and I start, you know, thinking about, okay, what's the reality? But if I'm not careful, I'll use my brain power to legitimize my emotions of, like, I'm hurt, I'm angry, and then I'm like
Yeah.
ready to take action because I got that the heart and the head going, and then something in my gut says, you don't really want to say that, you know, like, you know, like, you don't. That's not really going to help.
Right.
And that's I don't think you were there this Sunday, but last week in my message, before I talked about threes, I talked about this dynamic of our head intelligence, our heart intelligence, and our gut intelligence. And one of the theories I've been reading is that we do our best when we're able to integrate all three.
Yeah, that's work though. That's
Yeah.
you gotta. That's a lot of work.
Yep.
I don't know if I could. Getting all three to work at the same time. That
Yeah.
would be tricky.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the resources I read, and I thought that maybe this would be a place for us to kind of land on to end our conversation. And by the way, I side note, I heard a podcast about fours that these two guys are talking about how they often would meet up in, like, the Lowe's parking lot and talk for like 3 hours. So my four type and then your fourness, like we could probably go on forever.
Yeah.
But this was a scripture for fours, if I can find it, and it's from Jesus in John 15. And I needed to read the explanation, but I'll read the scripture. This is like the memory verse according to this one resource. These things I've spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. Here's the explanation. These things that Jesus is referring to are unpacked in John 1 through 10, the essence of which is summed up when he says, abide in me and I in you. Jesus is describing the glorious reality of the mutual indwelling of God and person through faith in the gospel. This is uniquely meaningful for a four in that it reassures them that nothing is missing. Their identity and sense of self is complete in Christ. Their joy is full, for it is the very joy of Jesus himself. This reassures a four that in the end, melancholy will not win, for joy comes in the morning.
Nice.
Just, right? I mean, I guess a sense of like, I mean, the question would be to land on is, you know, how is this idea that is at the center of the gospel that you aren't missing anything, you are understood, maybe not by Andy.
All the time. Although he does understand me pretty well.
Yeah.
But
no, he's
not all the
guy.
time. But he's pretty.
Well,
yeah.
right. Nobody is going to completely understand you. You know that by experience. But then there's the promise that indeed you are understood and made complete.
So to live in gratitude, be grateful, basically. And that's a good practice, to be grateful no matter what's going on. I try to do that, but at the end of the day, sometimes I'm tapped out. But being in joy and being grateful regardless.
Yeah. Like joy isn't happiness. Happiness is in the moment, right?
Right.
But like joy is like I have something, I'm complete. Like I'm joyful because I have my children. They bring me joy. They don't always make me happy because sometimes they're a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Right. But I feel more complete because I have them. I'm joyful because I'm now married. You know, not every moment of marriage is happiness, but it brings a sense of greater completeness. And I think that that's the promise to all of us, but especially needed to fours, is like, you are complete. And you have reason to just be at peace about that. And so you can wear your red shoes, you know, but you don't need to wear them so that people see you as special, and then you'll finally have a moment of feeling complete. Like, you can just wear like red shoes. Who cares what other people think, you know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm going to preach about King Saul this Sunday. I know you love him.
Sure.
But
good. That was a good talk. I think we went way too long. I hope you can edit this down.
Yeah, you know what? I figure that you know, anybody that wants to watch them will watch them. We'll just put them up there. I need to succeed and have it be all perfect. I'm working against that.
You're gonna let it go. Well, I'm gonna let it go. We're all gonna just let it go. Let it be, right?
Yeah. Be like the crazy sevens. We'll get to them. We'll get to them.
I can't wait.
Yeah. They're at the end of July.
Okay. All right. Good.
Well, Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott.
This Sunday. So if you could just think about like 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay. I'll talk to Matt, and do we do this together or separately?
Oh, that could be interesting. Yeah. Let's talk to Matt, because I need to reach out to him and interview him tomorrow if he's available. And I think we'll just throw him up, and then the two of you could come up together. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Okay.
It's gonna
Good.
be a long one this Sunday, everybody. Anyways,
Oh.
actually, you need to be out there with Matt because he'll need somebody to pull him down. Chatty Matty?
Yeah, Chatty Matty.
Yeah, love him. Love him. All righty. Okay. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. I don't know how to get out.
Uh,
Okay. There.